Hello everyone, welcome back to Pommyinoz. I hope we're all doing really well, and we're here to do a review of a win. We love a win here at Pommyinoz, so if you are new around here, it's not always happy, it's not always glossy. We try and be honest and we try and be moralistically correct, and we give praise just as harsh as we critique. And please drop a like, please drop a sub. It would mean the world of you to join me on this journey. And 18-4, 112 defeats, 12-9, 81. Carlton running out 31-point winners at the Marvel in a game really that I've got to say was a lot different to anything we've seen this year. It was a really structured, tight game. Now, in the preview, we talked about making sure there was no separation. We know we like that long ball. We know we like the kicking style. To see Carlton go to 1.4 kick-to-handball ratio, really up the handballs, really excites me. And I'll go into great detail why that excites me and what it does, but we'll do a verbal cue first. It keeps the set together. It keeps the structure. It keeps your lines. And what makes me really excited is we knew St Kilda attacks down the left as its primary scoring source. Those who watch the scouting report, I'll pop a link in the description again so you can just go back and check it, because there's a lot of stats we'll cover here that we'll talk about that were in that. But what is really important is that you can actually see that what Carlton did this week, and it's the first time I've gone through all the other games, all the other scouting reports we've done. It's the first time we've really had a focus on what the opposition do, with a focus on allowing us to do what we want to do. Now, let's talk about the handball. For me, when you've got a team like we have, it is absolutely imperative that you handball. It takes away the necessary poor kicking styles that we do have, and we have a lot of these guys who are just around the kicking AFL average. But it also keeps your structure. The handball allows you to move up in increments as opposed to creating that separation we talk. And when you turn the ball over with separation, good sides penetrate them pockets of space like we did to St Kilda. We forced them to kick it long, and then you saw we started to punish on turnover them areas. We were dominant on turnover, over 70 points coming from turnover. An absolute flip from from this year. An absolute flip. It's very rare we win that. And what I want to talk about that, why that is so important, it also increased our kicking accuracy this week. Around the ground, the field kicking is what I'm talking about, the kicking efficiency, because the kicks now were shorter. They were to open space. You don't have to kick to mark to get the efficiency stat. You've only got to retain possession. And it makes it a lot easier when you're kicking to a guy that he's out on his own, as opposed to hitting a kick on Harry's head with three people. And it's really exciting. Another improvement for me is Charlie Curnow is in fact for me the best leader in AFL comps for the football. He is an absolute jet. You watch, of the inside 50s that Carlton had, which was 142, I would say a good 80 of them you saw Charlie Curnow attack that ball in flight, and he draws people with him. We talked about it in the scouting report, the mazy run Charlie does from deep, from that half-back flank almost, across centre half-back, moving to the other flank. You saw that a lot this game, and you also saw him do what he's naturally good at, dropping up to the wing to really give them a body to get over, and also an outlet ball there. He brings people with him, and you saw Harry be the beneficiary of this, particularly when Dougal Howard went back. They couldn't handle both of them. And what Charlie does is, I think for me, Teague always picks on McGovern and says there's some things stats don't correlate. With Charlie, there's some things that stats don't correlate. Watch that game back. It wasn't the most textbook game from him, 2 years of ring rust. But that still exists, and that's up here. You don't teach that. That is up here. The structure for playing a short kick style, which is what it's actually our shortest meters per game per disposal this week, as opposed to any other game this week. Really an emphasis on short, sharp football, which, if you look at our team, it's strength. The other person I want to talk about is Josh Honey. We know I'm a big fan of him. He was one of my picks when a lot of people said he was undraftable. We called it early with Josh, and I saw why. He drops deep for the ball. He really protected that left-hand side flank, that right-hand side for us. Their left-hand side, that was deep. And he comes deep. He comes deep. He puts pressure wherever he goes, and he's a really good conduit. And he kind of played the J-Sauce role, but he's got a little bit more of an engine than J-Sauce, a little bit of a quicker turn of pace. And it's a really exciting upgrade. We talk about Eddie Betts, and I think Eddie Betts has been good this year, but the modern-day footballer now does that from them forward pocket areas and them half-forward flanks. And he is a phenomenal player at it. A really great asset. There's another bloke in the reserves who's got similar skill set to this guy, in my opinion, has a higher ceiling, and that is Corey Durden, another guy that we know I'm a fan of. Look out, because if you get them two in this team and they can replicate that more than not, very dangerous for your forward pressure, because that is where the transition defence starts, there. And this week, we're going to go into a bit more detail of why, and let's have a look at it. Now, the first slide here, this is our average positions in transition in the previous last 3 games, right? Now, you can see there's a shed ton of pockets of space there. It's almost like you can see they've been caught in position of where they are. There's a lot of separation from the lines. There's a lot of open plane there. Now, what I want to show you is in the turnovers that Carlton did have and in transition, this was last week. This was this week. Look at it. Now, I want you to take a look at the right-hand side of the midfield. That is the left-hand side going forward for them. That is where they attack. Look at that. That is as close to textbook as you will get. That is absolutely brilliant. That honestly turns me on to see that, because we know how it is. What they do when they turned it over, and when they were looking in transition and in their defensive sets, they really had a mindfulness of to drop back the pressure a little bit from the forward half and really lock it in across half forward and really lock it in the midfield. I think we play too deep. We look to lock it in really far forward. We allowed a lot of the rebounds to come out this week, and it's a smart play because you are already in your positions for an attacking phase, and that is all delivered by short handballs and short kicks, because your starting positions, if you just imagine visually 6-6-6, it's not very hard to replicate that. It's not hard to replicate that organically as the ball is moving and fluid in play. It's a very exciting method, this. And also you've got there as well, as the ball goes forward across half forward. If you take Martin Dow, O'Brien, you saw this a lot. Fisher particularly, that 6 there can stream as O'Brien's got the ball. Charlie Kerner can do his cut inside to centre half forward. Fisher carries on running, Dow comes in, and suddenly you've got a really potent forward line. You've got Silvani there that was dropping back, as most ruckmen do, as the backstop. And that is how you play football in the modern day. There is 3 people there straight away. You can see a deadly with the ball in motion going inside 50. Williamson being 1. Absolute brilliant how he overlapped with Fisher a lot of the times. Fisher really was a lot more defensive this week. And Sard and O'Brien worked perfectly because Stocker was there as their backstop. So quite often you found O'Brien or Sard would stay back, so Stocker was there, and there was 2 people there with Stocker actually moving in to the midfield at times in forward transition and also getting on the wing as well. It's a really potent method, and it's very hard to beat, and it's a very simplistic. It's not overly complicated. We're talking schoolboy stuff here, but I'm excited because this is organic. This is what they are born to do. You replicate this, 17 sides are beatable all of a sudden because you've taken away their primary score asset against us through the corridor. It's protected. The only wing options available to you are the widest point of the grounds. This is smart tactical play because that's what Ratton likes to do. But Ratton likes to do that from getting the ball from a corridor, a switch into the corridor and back out. He took that away from them. So all they were left with were long 1-on-2s, 2-on-1s in them wing spaces when the ball hit the deck, Cripps, Silvani, Kennedy and Cripps, they covered a lot of ground to get to the fall of the ball, create a contest and go again. It's a very clever play, and credit where credit is due to David Teague. That is old Teague. That's not the players. That will have been structured. He talked about he was quite firm with them. That's brilliant. Now let's only hope that this 1.4 handball is coming in because of that hard conversation. Let's hope it's not a flash in the pan. Let's hope no one's stupid and thinks that the old methods work, because that method works. We saw it back end of 2019. Get players to play to their strengths. That's a strength. That's a strength, because they naturally formulate in these roles from them attacking phases. Watch the game back slowly. They naturally fall in this. You don't have to coach anything. They just fall into place. This first slide we showed you, think back to it, that's chaos. It's chaos in a mini-map. Chaos. Organised versus chaos. Have organised chaos, and that's what short ball movement does. Now let's talk about two players I want to pick on. We know we're going to give Honey raps. We've given him. Walsh always gets raps. Charlie Kerno, we know I'm in love with him. I want to talk about Silvani and Williamson, and I want to talk about O'Brien. Now what was phenomenal here, and another switch that we talk about, there was the Jones switch on Max King that allowed Wheater in a moment to gather himself, which nailed it. Williamson, you can see in that slide there, he's very deep from his starting position. And you can also see Martin and Fisher are very back for their starting positions. Carlton effectively played these as extras in the midfield. And we've been talking about this for a couple of weeks. I mentioned it last week. It's how you beat North. Phenomenal about taking away people's strengths around stoppages. It's phenomenal about taking away people's strength from centre clearances. And what it is from that 6 and 6 is it's a sprint race. You see it, they go to their most defensive positions and they do it. Traditionally, Teague likes to play these behind the ball, these extras. He played them on the ball this week, and it paid dividends because Silvani worked overtime, didn't win the hit-outs, he never was going to. But that extra midfield, and for me, that's why Silvani is a midfielder, because he played as the extra midfielder, and it's his coolness, it's the pressure he brings. The pressure that him brought in that midfield is really understated for me. And seeing Kennedy, Silvani, 19 tackles, you throw Ed Kerno into that as well. You've got 27 tackles between them. That is an absolute mammoth task. And you look at where they are on the ground, they are right knee deep into the battle. So you'd switch there. Ed Kerno also played in the rotation, and he was quite often where Fish and Martin were. So you can see these guys here really around the danger area, really around to impacts, and that for me is just sensational. Fisher with 5 tackles and Martin with 9 tackles, so they did that rotation there as well. Ed Kerno with 8 on his own. That's a really exciting thing, because you're effectively playing with 2 extra mids. So you think that on that contested work, there's usually around 4 guys around there. Suddenly Carlton had 6 to 7 at times. And it really helps them out condense, protect the corridor, 1, but 2, it really gives you an opportunity to stifle any entries to their strong ball users. And St Kilda's method is similar to everyone else. Steele getting the ball out to Billings, Butler, these players who are going to hurt you and be creative. Smart play. It's a smart play. And it's tough to beat because Kennedy, Martin, Fisher himself as well. He loses a few tackles, but he nails them when he gets the opportunity, because they're in the position to tackle. It's not an intense situation, the tackles, this. They were literally in position to tackle. They didn't have to chase. They were there. All they had to do was get in the way. It's no surprise we got highest tackle numbers for a long time because of this. When you are in position, tackling is a no-brainer. It's really, really exciting. And I also want to talk about the kicking. The kicking. Lockie O'Brien. You get these wingers who are actually winners, and you get them into freedom of space. Bit of freedom of space becomes easier. Lockie O'Brien's done this his entire career. When he's in space and he's got a bit of time and he's untroubled, he's going to be very good. It's why he was drafted for his elite engine and his long booming kick. And you saw it this week. Get that ball out to him free when he's 1 out, when there's runners overlapping the last man of defence on the flank. He hits targets. He hits targets, and he's a natural winger. You're not teaching this. And it shows the dividends of playing a natural winger in his natural role and then setting a tactic that allows you to compensate for their weaknesses. Most footballers are shit under pressure. It's not a rarity. It's just that we're under a lot of pressure, so suddenly it stands out. Some teams aren't. Some teams are only under pressure in 2 or 3 positions, and they have a bailout plan. When you think of that first slide I show you about our average positions in transition, you're always under pressure. Always. Because every kick is difficult. There was always options for Lockie as well. He looked for them shorter options. Someone to help him out. Splendid play there. Really good play. It helps Mackay as well be isolated. That is so important. And the kicking was fantastic. The kicking efficiency goes up, particularly in front of goal, when you're getting easy scoring opportunities. They didn't have to work so hard for them. There was a lot of times that Carlton fed each other goal assists inside. The goal assist was an absolute phenomenal thing to see this week from Carlton, because that is an area that I always go, well, we don't really do it. O'Brien with 4, Honey with 3, Dow, Fish, Martin 2, Cripps, Owies and Walsh, they cropped up with 1 apiece as well. There was a real spread, a real ownership. This wasn't individual performances. This is what you happen when you get a team. And for a team to win, you have to have structure. And hats off to Teague. He fell across the great structure. This is brilliant, and it's something to get excited about if they replicate it. If they replicate it. But there's no reason why, because this is the first time they've ever done something like this. So this is the light bulb moment, ladies and gentlemen. If they play shit next week, you're lost. You're lost. But there's a light heartbeat. There's a heart. There's a soul. Great performance, and hats off to them. I'm not going to criticise them too much for the 4th. They ran out of legs. They worked very hard in that structure, and St Kilda came hard, and they did well. They did well to still win by 30, I thought, because there was an uh-oh moment at times. But shout out to everyone, do you know what I mean? Whether you've been Teague out, Teague in, whatever, just the passion, man. The passion. I was around a lot of St Kilda fans last night. It's not the same as us. We've got something special. And let's keep pushing that agenda, because special is what this club is. Special. It's got a great place in each and every one of our fans' hearts. It's a pleasure doing this for you guys and girls. It's a pleasure. Win or lose, I want you to know that. It's great when we win, though, so I can smile and be happy and give you something to smile about. I love you all to pieces. Bring on the Gold Coast Suns. They are a fucking Mickey Mouse side. So I expect to see more of the same. It's build up for the 2 final tough games and the finish. Knock off an 8 side. That's got to be the aim. It's the one underline we need. Till next time, Pom out.